Perception can be defined as a process wherein the individual receives various stimuli, organize the impressions, interpret them in their own way, and give meaning to the environment. Different individuals have different thinking styles, beliefs, feelings, and objectives, and almost every individual behaves accordingly. Just because of these factors, different people take different meaning for the same things. Behavior is based on one's perception of what reality is. Perceptions can be different to the actual reality. What one perceives can be substantially different from what another person perceives. Perception is prone to inaccuracies in judgment. Common perceptual errors are the halo effect, stereotyping, and projection. The halo effect is a type of error wherein an individual is perceived based on a single trait. In other words, a single trait may cast its influence on all other traits. For example, a person may have done some good work some time ago, which was highly appreciated. This good deed will tend to influence how a person is judged. Stereotyping, in its simplest sense, would mean typecasting. For example, a teaching faculty may stereotype that students seated at the back of the class are laggards. In many ways, people are typecasted based on race, religion, and gender. Some types of generalized statements may influence perception on groups of people. Projection is an error wherein a person is perceived positively because they possess familiar traits and characteristics, like when it is easy for people to accept individuals because they graduated from the same school, grew up in the same town, or are engaged in the same hobby. Research has shown that what employees perceive from their work situation influences their productivity. To influence productivity, it is important for employers to assess how workers perceive their jobs. Absenteeism, turnover, and job satisfaction have more to do with an employee's perception of the job. Those individuals who perceive their jobs as negative are likely to have increased absenteeism and less job satisfaction. Behavior in the workplace is based on people's perception of the workplace. Behavior of individuals will make the culture of the organization. Perception is a process and is composed of three stages. 1. Perceptual inputs. 2. Perceptual mechanism. And 3. Perceptual outputs. Perceptual inputs is the first stage in the perception process, where the perceiver comes across information that exists in the environment. These factors provide stimuli to the perceiver. When the perceiver interacts with a stimulus, sensation takes place, which starts the perception process. Stimuli from the environment may be in the form of objects, events, people. Perceptual mechanism is how the perceiver will process stimuli. This involves three elements: selection of stimuli, organization of stimuli, and interpretation of stimuli. Selection of stimuli. The perceiver becomes affected by internal factor stimuli, which relates to the perceiver, like education and experience, and external factor stimuli, which is related to social and environmental stimuli. Organization of stimuli. This is arranging stimuli in some form so as to make sense. Interpretation of stimuli. After selecting and organizing stimuli, the next step is interpretation. Here, the perceiver interprets things according to his thinking styles, state of mind, environment, circumstances, objectives, and beliefs. This is done by making assumptions about people or by using past experience. The last perceptual process is perceptual outputs. These outputs may be in the form of covert or unseen personal actions, like development of attitudes, opinions, beliefs, impressions about the stimuli. It may also result into overt or observable actions, like after seeing an advertisement, the perceiver buys a product, or after reading a news article, the perceiver joins an advocacy. Ways to improve perception. In an organization setup, it becomes imperative to understand how others perceive the workplace and individuals. This will help in interaction and team handling. Number one, authentic communication. The manager must be able to communicate properly to prevent subordinates forming incorrect perception about the team leader and the department. Directions and instructions must be understood clearly to avoid misunderstanding due to incorrect perception. Empathy. It is recommended that managers must be empathetic in their approach in order to improve perception. This would enable them to understand and handle their subordinates properly. It is often observed that excellent listening skills helps managers in improving perception. Positive attitude. Keeping a positive attitude also helps in improving the perception. Keeping a positive attitude can make employees take effective control of situations, thus preventing one's perception to get distorted, like trying to read people's minds and making baseless decisions. Cultural influences. Cultural influence also impact perception. An individual's upbringing to an extent guides one's perception. It may be difficult for an individual to change one's perception. Organizations, therefore, must be flexible and accommodating to organizational perception. What are constraints to organization perception? The most important role perception have in the workplace is its link to the decision-making process. Let us discuss the constraints affecting perception that ultimately leads to incorrect decisions. Reward system. In most cases, it is observed that the team is not motivated to complete their targets if they have not understood the reward system properly. An improper communication about reward system will lead to incorrect perception in the minds of the employees, which restrict their motivational levels to perform better. Historical precedents. If there have been any historical precedents, good or bad, it would largely affect the perception of individuals in their work environment. Any good or bad incidents that happened in the past can influence employee perception and thus affecting their behavior. Rigid rules and regulations. If the rules and regulations are highly rigid, then the employees may perceive the management of the organization to be highly inflexible and hostile in their approach. Consequently, employees may also perceive the organization as indifferent to human needs and may not be interested in joining missions for the organization. Unclear roles. Employees at their workplace should have complete clarity about their roles. Organizations must have well-defined roles for each position. Undefined goals. If the goals are not defined, this leaves everything to the understanding of the employees. As a result, employees tend to take up soft and comfortable goals and underachieve due to the misinterpretation of goals.
It is all around us, even now in this very room. You can
Incorrect
see it when you
perception
look
could
out your
affect the
window
employees and
or when you turn on
consequently
your
the
television.
organization in more than
You
one
can
way.
feel it when you
Managers
go to
today
work
need to understand
when you go to
Organizational
church,
success can follow only
when you pay your
if the
taxes.
perception of the employees are
It
well
is the
understood
world
and addressed.
that has been pulled over your
This
eyes to
addressing
blind you
may
from the
involve
truth.
correcting the perceptions of everyone
What
involved.
truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.